What happens when you threaten a journalist with a billion-dollar lawsuit, and he sues you first? That's not a hypothetical. It's happening right now. And the answer to that question might expose secrets that powerful people have spent decades trying to bury. January 30th, 2026. While Americans watched a glossy documentary premiere about First Lady Melania Trump at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., something far more explosive was unfolding in a New York courtroom. The disconnect was surreal. On one screen, designer gowns, champagne, and a carefully curated story of elegance and power. On another, legal filings that read like a thriller, filled with allegations about Jeffrey Epstein, private jets, and questions that refuse to stay buried. This isn't just another celebrity lawsuit. This is a legal chess match where one wrong move could force depositions, unlock documents, and put the President and First Lady of the United States under oath. And it all started with a cease and desist letter. October 2025. Michael Wolff, the journalist who made his name exposing the chaos inside Trump's first White House with his bombshell book, Fire and Fury, received a letter from Melania Trump's attorneys. The message was crystal clear. Retract your statements about her connections to Jeffrey Epstein, or face a defamation lawsuit seeking over $1 billion in damages. For most journalists, this is where the story ends. Publishers panic, lawyers advise silence. The story dies quietly, but Wolff didn't blink. Instead of backing down, he did something almost unheard of in American media. He sued first. On October 22nd, Wolff filed a declaratory judgment action in the New York Supreme Court. Under the state is anti-SLAPP laws designed to protect journalists from lawsuits meant to silence them through intimidation and expensive legal fees. His filing didn't just defend his reporting, it also addressed the allegations against him. It went on offense. It detailed his interviews with Epstein before the financier's death. It outlined questions he wanted to ask the Trumps under oath. And it dared Melania Trump to follow through on her threats. Because here's the thing about defamation lawsuits. Once you file one, you open the door to discovery. And discovery means emails, calendars, financial records, depositions, and questions asked under penalty of perjury. Truth becomes a defense. Silence stops being an option. Wolff claims he has hours of recorded interviews with Jeffrey Epstein, conducted years before Epstein died in federal custody in 2019. In those interviews, according to court filings, Epstein allegedly discussed his relationship with Donald Trump and Melania. The specific allegations? They're explosive. But more importantly, they're now part of the legal record awaiting testing in court. And that's where this story gets dangerous for everyone involved. Because if Melania Trump follows through and sues, Wolff gets to ask his questions. If she doesn't sue, the allegations stand unchallenged, preserved in legal filings that anyone can read. It's a legal trap, and the clock is ticking. To understand why this lawsuit matters, you need to understand what Wolff is claiming and what's already been verified. Let's start with the facts everyone agrees on. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein moved in the same elite New York circles throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. They attended parties together. They were photographed together at Mar-a-Lago. Trump once called Epstein a terrific guy in a 2002 New York Magazine interview, adding that Epstein likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Trump has since distanced himself from Epstein, claiming they had a falling out around 2004. Now here's where it gets complicated. According to Wolff's legal filing, he conducted extensive interviews with Epstein over several years, reportedly more than 100 hours of recordings. During these conversations, Wolff claims, Epstein made specific statements about the Trumps that formed the basis of his reporting. Those statements, according to the filing, included claims about how Donald and Melania Trump first met, the social circles Melania moved in during the late 1990s as a model in New York, and Epstein's alleged role in facilitating connections between powerful men and young women. Wolff's lawyers argue these aren't random accusations. They frame them as the product of years of investigative journalism with a source who had direct knowledge. But there's a problem. Epstein is dead. He can't be cross-examined. The tapes haven't been authenticated in open court yet. That's exactly why discovery matters so much. And then there's the documentary. Amazon MGM Studios paid a record-breaking $40 million to license Melania, a figure that shocked Hollywood insiders. The streaming giant spent an additional $35 million on marketing, giving the film a promotional budget that dwarfs most Oscar contenders. The film premiered on January 29th at the Kennedy Center with President Trump, cabinet members, and tech CEOs in attendance. Critics savaged it. Rotten Tomatoes shows just 7% positive reviews. One reviewer called it the most expensive infomercial in history. But box office numbers aren't the point. The timing is. While the documentary tried to present Melania Trump as elegant, misunderstood, and deeply private, Wolff's legal filing painted a very different picture, one of someone connected to Epstein's social network, someone with knowledge she's allegedly trying to suppress. The contrast couldn't be sharper. One narrative is polished, expensive, and controlled. The other is raw, documented in legal filings and impossible to ignore. Jeffrey Epstein's name carries weight that most people understand viscerally. The convicted sex offender's social circle included presidents, princes, scientists, and billionaires. His private island, his Manhattan townhouse, his Boeing 727 dubbed the Lolita Express. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're documented facts. What remains unclear is who knew what and when. That's the question at the heart of Wolff's lawsuit. Not whether Melania Trump committed a crime, there's no allegation of that, but whether she was present in spaces where things were happening, whether she saw things that raised questions, whether her silence over the years has been privacy or something else. These aren't accusations, they're inquiries. And inquiries are exactly what defamation lawsuits can unleash. Here's what makes this moment unprecedented. A sitting First Lady is facing the possibility of being deposed in a lawsuit about her alleged connections to one of the most notorious criminals in modern American history. Not because she's accused of wrongdoing, but because she threatened to sue someone for talking about her past. Legal experts call this a strategic miscalculation. By sending that billion-dollar threat letter, Melania Trump's team may have triggered exactly the public scrutiny they were trying to avoid. Under New York's anti-SLAPP law, Wolff doesn't have to prove every detail he reported is perfectly accurate. He only has to demonstrate he had a reasonable basis for believing his reporting was true. If he can do that, if he can show his interviews with Epstein, his research, his fact-checking process, the case collapses. And if Melania Trump actually files the defamation suit she threatened. Discovery begins. Depositions get scheduled. Questions get asked under oath. Questions like, did you ever attend events at Jeffrey Epstein's residences? Did Epstein provide any assistance with your immigration paperwork when you entered the United States? Did you ever see anything at these events that raised concerns? These aren't theoretical. Wolff's attorneys have outlined exactly what they want to ask. And then there's the timing no one can ignore. January 24th, 2026. Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old ICU nurse and U.S. citizen, was shot and killed by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis while protesting Trump's immigration crackdown. Video footage contradicted the administration's initial claims that Preddy approached officers with a gun. Witnesses said he was filming with his phone. The incident sparked nationwide protests and bipartisan calls for an investigation. 5 days later, while Minneapolis mourned and protests spread, the Trump administration's cabinet attended a lavish premiere for a $75 million documentary celebrating the First Lady. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the optics grotesque. The juxtaposition became impossible to ignore. Streets filled with protesters, a nation divided over aggressive federal enforcement tactics, and simultaneously a glossy film designed to soften and mythologize one of the most private figures in American politics. So we return to the question we started with. What happens when you threaten a journalist with a billion-dollar lawsuit and he sues you first? We're about to find out. Because Michael Wolff isn't backing down. His lawsuit is active. His recordings allegedly exist, and his attorneys have made clear they're prepared to take this as far as it needs to go. Melania Trump now faces an impossible choice. Follow through on her threat and face discovery, or let the allegations stand unchallenged in the public record. Either way, the Epstein story, the final chapter that powerful people hoped would close with his death, just reopened. The documentary might have cost $75 million, but the legal battle could cost something far more valuable: control of the narrative. And in 2026, that might be the most expensive thing of all. The question isn't whether someone is guilty, it's whether silence can survive sunlight. We'll be watching. And so should you.